let's go to our file browser and check it out. So here's our prefixed version and our allcss.css. What I'm going to do here is compare these in a file comparison tool so we can see what the differences are between them. So what we're going to see here is a mix of behaviors. One is that autoprefixer will add prefixes where it's needed, and secondly, it will remove prefixes that are no longer needed. So over here on this side, we have our concatenated version that hasn't been prefixed yet. And then over here, we have our prefixed version. As you can see, in this comparison tool, what we see in red are lines that are taken out in the prefixed version. So this WebKit box shadow has been removed because, at least according to the settings that we have now, it's not necessary for cross-browser compatibility. And as we go through our changes here, I'm just going to click this next button to jump through them. You can see that we have a lot that got removed. We have prefixes for box sizing, box shadow, and border radius being removed. I'm going to keep going down, and you can see this repeated. Now, right now we're going through the selectize styles, so these are styles that we didn't have control over to begin with. And we'll just keep going down through the changes. Notice here that a few items are being removed from this transition here, but the WebKit prefix is being retained. So it's clearly obeying some specific rules here. As we go down, there's a few more that got removed. And here we have the only item that got added, which is the specific one that we wanted in order to have compatibility with Internet Explorer 9. So it takes the transform property and it adds a WebKit prefix and an MS prefix for Microsoft. And then as we go down to the very bottom, we see that the source map is being removed here, which is something that gets removed anyway through the minification process. So because more lines got removed than got added in, when we look at the comparison between our prefixed version and our unprefixed version, the prefixed version is actually a little bit smaller. Now, if we're worried that we're removing some prefixes that we actually need, what we can do is specify which browsers we want to support. So I'm going to go back to the documentation for grunt-autoprefixer, and I'll scroll up here to the options. So one of the first options is browsers. And here's one example. So we can specify the browser's key, and then the value can be a set of browsers that we want to support. This one says the last two versions, which means that we want to support the last two versions of all major browsers. And then we specifically want to support IE8 and IE9. Now, to learn what we can put in here, we can click on this default browsers link and scroll down. And we can see in the documentation here different ways that we can specify which browsers we want to support. We saw the last two versions in the previous example. We can specify any browser that has more than a certain percentage of users, and we can specify specific versions of browsers that we want to support. Now again, all of this will reference a database on caniuse.com, which is what we've been referencing as we've tried to figure out which CSS properties we can use without alienating certain users. So for this project, I think we're good to go. We can add in additional specifics if we find out we need to support certain other browsers.